So good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to our session 1 this afternoon, the Use It or Lose It. As you have heard this morning, there is no doubt there will be a big surplus of LPG, of propane in the future. And if the industry doesn't make sure that this is well used, it will be absorbed in other uses, including, as we heard this morning, crackers in the US and the Asia. This makes this session particularly important because we all know that it is the LPG applications which help us use the project in an efficient way, in a good way, in a profitable way. So the more we use and the more we develop LPG applications, the better our future will be. And this is the time when we design our future. Developing new applications, improving existing applications, and promoting applications there where we don't have them yet. So it is my pleasure now to introduce Roy Willis, the CEO of the Propane Education and Research Council. He will be the chair for this session. Roy has led the organization since it began the operations in '98, producing, as we know, award-winning advertising campaigns, work-life safety and workforce training programs, and overseeing a wealth of research portfolio that has produced a wide area of clean, efficient, propane-powered appliances, equipment, and vehicles. Roy has a distinguished career in the energy sector that began in his early years from the gas fields of the Gulf of Mexico and the neighboring states. He was involved in energy policy for more than 2 decades, serving in senior staff positions in the Louisiana legislature and the US House of Representatives. He was Senior Vice President and Acting President of the Independent Petroleum Association of America and Chairman of the National Energy Resource Organization. He was the founding Chairman of the Global Technology Network within the World LPG Association and is a long-standing member of the WLPGA Industry Council. So we're very pleased to have Roy as chair. Roy.
Thank you, Nikos. And welcome. Glad to have you here. In a moment, I'll introduce our panelists today, who are just really distinguished individuals in our industry that will be talking about some of the technology that is not only on display here, but is being deployed in marketplace from one corner of the world to another. Use it or lose it is our theme, and I want to take a cue from Nikos' comment and what we heard this morning, that if we in the retail and commercial propane industry are not able to build markets that use our marvelous product, it will be used to make, I like to refer to it, make plastic bags. The world needs fewer plastic bags. What it needs is what propane technology can unleash in our customers' hands. And locked inside of our fuel and the technology that uses that fuel are economic and environmental benefits that our consumers and customers can realize. The challenge, of course, is for us to be far more proactive than perhaps we've been in the past, to build those markets, to introduce consumers to that technology and to the environmental and economic benefits that propane and LPG offer to the marketplace and to the world. Oftentimes, when you talk to large audiences and consumers about propane, they like to think of it as a small portion of our energy supply, and oftentimes, especially in the United States, our natural gas colleagues dismiss it as too small to be consequential. my remark to them is that, no, it is rare and precious. It's a fuel that's used on every continent on this planet except Antarctica, and I've tried to get confirmation on Antarctica, but they're sort of frozen in down there. And it's also used in every segment of the economy, at homes and businesses, factories, farms, and fleets around the world rely on clean, efficient, affordable propane, LPG, every day. So we'll hear more about the technologies that are available and that are on display. It's been almost a decade now since the WLPGA launched the first global technology conference, and every year the focus of this conference on technology has been growing and growing and growing, and we have on display through our exhibitors today a marvelous array of technology. I encourage all of you to visit with the exhibitors, understand their technology, and be thinking about ways that you can put that technology to work. Again, not only to serve your customers, but equally important, to help your business grow. We have a tremendous opportunity, a blessing, an abundance of our primary energy resource, and it's up to us to put that to work. So, our panelists today, I'll give you a brief introduction and then a little bit more elaboration when they come to the fore, but to my immediate left is Andrew Ford, who is the Group Public Affairs Manager for SHV Energy. To his left is a colleague of mine, Tucker Perkins, who is the Chief Business Development Officer for the Propane Education and Research Council. To his left is Larry Osgood, the founder and president of Consulting Solutions here in the United States. To his left is the ancient mariner, our dear friend Bernardo Herzer, the founder and CEO of Lair, an environmental company. And at the far end, Giorgio Basalgia with the Cavagna Group. So first up this afternoon, Andrew Ford. Andrew is, as I mentioned, Group Public Affairs Manager for SHV Energy. After joining Calor Gas, as he says here in his bio, in the late 19th century, he just says it just seems that long. He has held a variety of roles, largely specializing in developing marketing and communication strategies. He is currently the chair of the WLPGA Global Technology Network. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roy. It's a pleasure to be here and to be talking about this subject. And I have to confess, I usually say that at these events, and I speak at a number of government and civil servant-based events, and sometimes that's a lie. Today, I can assure you it is a genuine pleasure, because in around 10 minutes, we will be making live a website which has been under construction for 2 years, almost, and it's been quite a journey. We had an ambition to create the largest and most complete LPG application database in the industry. It was an ambition not because it was an ego-driven thing, but because the global association, the WLPGA, is the best body in which we can house this. It's probably also not as much more fun than creating the second largest, most complete LPG application. So we had a high ambition, and it has been a journey. You can read the whys and the visions and targets, but let's reflect a little at the beginning. And I can tell you that the LPG industry globally has a serious case of perk envy. Everywhere you go outside the United States, people say, I wish we could have a perk. That's why they're so good, and so on and so on. And I think the concept of that started from that kind of feeling. And so a couple of years ago, a group of us decided that we were going to do something about it. And we wanted to address that through the creation of this global database. The challenge was to create something that was easily searchable, was sustainable in the way in which it had to be maintained, and truly comprehensive. So, to see how we've come up with that, I'm going to play a short video which will shortly be put on the website as the first thing that people see. And this should explain, in a nutshell, what we tried to achieve. Okay, well, I've still got time to go through a few examples as people would use this website, just to demonstrate how it works in practice. The first challenge we had is that we know that people will know something about LPG, but they won't know exactly what application to look for. It's not like if you were buying a car, you want a four-wheel drive, hatchback, or so on. You kind of know that it may be used in a certain area. So here we've got the example of agriculture. So you know that LPG is used in agriculture, but you're not quite sure what it's used for. So if you click on that as a sector search, you get an explanation with the number of applications that it could be used for. And this scrolls down and there are more applications. So it actually makes it easier for the viewer to find out what they're looking for, even if they don't know what they're looking for. So that was our first challenge, and that's how we kind of got around that. In each one of these sectors, you'll see a description of exactly why LPG is relevant to the sector, and then more detail about the applications itself. The other way of searching is to look at specific functions. Here we've got on the left power and electricity generation. And then you have a more detailed description of the kind of generators that are available. With generation, this is a good example because it can range from someone who's seen a generator on some traffic lights to an industry that is beyond the mains gas grid, who actually wants something much bigger. But you can see here that it captures the function of generation in all its forms, so that people can more easily find out what they are specifically looking for. On some of the links, you'll see videos. On the right-hand side, in this case, you can see, for instance, that there will be a video, and we've collected that from libraries around the membership and from around the industry. And then you'll see in some sites as well, there are members who we know are active within the area that, that the search is designed for. The other way to look at it is if you know the application. Here we've got mowers. So if someone goes and sees a mower in a park, they then go in and can actually put in the term mower and find out specifically about that application. News and library, we saw that in the video. It's very important that a website like this should be constantly updated and maintained. So this section details current press releases and latest developments. The news will be maintained in a similar way. It won't be as regular as Perk's daily news, we could say that now, but it will be timely and relevant so that it can be a site that people visit for interest. Feedback. We encourage feedback, not in the same way that Wikipedia does. You won't be able to access it and change it, but we do want feedback as to how people have found their experience and if there's anything missing or they believe to be inaccurate. So that's a very important part of the site. So we need the support to make this website known. The links to your own website are very important. We do need your feedback to keep enhancing it. We don't foresee doing a very proactive outreach program before you guys have had a chance to tell us what you think about it. But we will be doing one, but it's only right that we give you the opportunity to tell us what you think. Now, is that time where we need to make this go live? So I'd like to ask for a number of things. Firstly, whilst they're fiddling around at the back there, I just have a question for Roy. Roy has been a supporter of this from virtually day one, and in a way, he's the guy who needs it less than the rest of the world. So I just wanted to know why you've been so behind this, Roy.
Well, first of all, it's important. We work with a great many manufacturers, and when they look at the propane market in the United States, they see a limited opportunity for the market of their propane-powered products. Through the work that we do with the WLPGA and through this website, we will expose their products to a global marketplace, which multiplies the opportunity and expands their vision of what the return can be on their investment in propane technology. Makes sense?
Yep, yep. You'll forgive me about the perk envy thing. But, that is, okay, now, James, if you can join me on stage, we're nearly there. Okay. The question for James that I had was quite simple. We had a industry council meeting and various other meetings. The length of topics that the WLPGA have to deal with is pretty extensive. This, for the last 2 years, has been right towards the top of the agenda. And I just wondered how it stayed there, James.
It's right at the top of our agenda, that's true. And that's not to say that all the other things that we do are not also very, very important. You know, but what we found over the years is that our mission, part of our mission, is to promote the use of LPG. And we've done that traditionally by identifying all the benefits of LPG, trying to educate people, to ultimately to influence people, whether it's consumers, whether it's the companies, or whether it's governments. But the fact is, no matter how much you influence people to use something, if the appliances aren't out there which are competitive and efficient and attractive for consumers to use, the market's not going to grow. And the other thing that we found was that, I'm not going to get onto the whole thing of perk envy, but in the US, you've done a wonderful job at actually promoting and raising awareness of the appliances that are out there. In the rest of the world, we also have appliances that perhaps you don't have in the US. And the purpose of this site is really to try to raise awareness so people know that there are really thousands of applications out there, and you can buy them, you can have them imported, you can grow the market. Something that shocked me a little bit this morning, I don't know if John Kingston is still with us, but he mentioned this morning that LPG is nowhere in transportation. And, you know, that's the kind of awareness problem that we have in many areas of our business. So I guess in a nutshell, that's the reason we think this is a big priority. The last thing I'd like to say is it's been a lot of work in 2 years to get to this point where we can launch it and go live. But we should be fully aware that probably the biggest part of our job lies ahead of us, because for this website to be useful, it needs to remain relevant, and that requires a huge investment from our side and from our partners to keep it working and keep it live. So, you know, we shouldn't kid ourselves that the work's done.
No, I think this is the end of the beginning, I think.
Yes.
Right, finally, I'd like to ask Nikos to step forward. And as he does so, he deserves a round of applause for this.
Thank you, Andrew. If I may say also something, it was a long journey, a very long journey to arrive where we are today. We have a lot of help from our members. Some have helped more, some less. But I think there are 3 members which I would like to mention. First, it was PERC, who from the beginning led us the way, because they had started before us putting this attention on the application and really showed us that it's possible. So PERC is one of the first ones to thank. Then it was Cavagna. Cavagna because they were also strong believers in the applications, and this you can also see it yourselves by the range of products that they are displaying now under the Green Gear range. And then, not last, it is surely SHV and Andrew, which I must thank very much for their dedication, for the support from the very beginning of this project. And it's not by chance that Andrew is presenting today this project. It's because it was in his heart. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Okay, so we asked Nikos to source, because this is at the leading edge of technology, we asked him to source a method of really making this go live. And he came up with a bell. So if we can have a shot of you 3 just ringing the bell, and as you ring the bell...
We'll put you in the middle. Stole that from a cow in Switzerland. Oh. with that dramatic introduction, I'm not certain that anything that we can do for the rest of the day is going to have any impact, but I'm pretty sure that we will. And I do thank you, Andrew, for your leadership in bringing this to fruition, and Nikos especially for your hard labor. I appreciate you acknowledging PERC, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that Grace Willis on our team, who manages our portfolio and process, was primarily responsible for the PERC contribution. So I want to thank Grace as well for that. Now I also get to thank someone else from PERC for being here today. Our next speaker is Tucker Perkins. As I mentioned, is the Chief Business Development Officer for the Propane Education and Research Council. He's been with us a little less than 3 years, but it probably seems like a decade. He lives on the road working with manufacturers, distributors, consumer groups to help develop new products and to commercialize them. There's an old saying that I think is completely false. It is, build it and they will come. And that is completely wrong. You have not only to build it, but you have got to get it in front of them. You've got to incentivize consumers to use the product. You've got to demonstrate it. And all of those activities fall within Tucker's leadership at PERC. He has been actively involved in our industry for more than 25 years. He is a former president of Clean Fuel USA, a U.S. alternative fuel systems manufacturer and supplier, and he is currently active with the National Propane Gas Association and the Virginia Propane Gas Association. He will address us today talking about propane irrigation engines, mowers, and other developments and future technology. Tucker.
I could follow that cowbell, but I'm not sure I want to follow that video. We'll give it a whirl here. It is always nice to talk to anybody about propane, and I will do it as often as I get a chance. And normally I want to talk about what we're doing in on-road fuel, because what we're doing in the U.S. in terms of school buses and medium-duty trucks and passenger fleets and taxi cabs and shuttle buses is downright thrilling, and we love to tell that story. As exciting as that is, though, to talk about a place that we really are moving the needle, and perhaps where our fuel is best benefited, and that is in small engines. So if you will, I'm going to talk to you for the next few minutes about really just two markets that we're in. Small engines, generally around commercial mowing, and also we'll talk some about irrigation. First off, our work is very specific and targeted, and we believe that over the next 4 to 7 years, our opportunities are clearly to take share away anywhere an engine is burning gasoline or diesel fuel today. We think that our opportunities, that our engines are just superior. Our fuel is just superior to gasoline or diesel. And we'll target that into 3 primary markets. First, on-road. Certainly we talked about a lot of that. Commercial mowing, and I will talk specifically about that today. And then finally, while we do have a lot of fuel on the farm, the opportunities for us with irrigation engines are outstanding. As you can see, even our consultants would conservatively, I think, say that we think that new market alone will be nearly 1 billion gallons by the time we get to 2020. And unless Roy gets rid of me sooner, we're going to beat these targets. So we're going to work on that. I just want to mention, in case you don't follow that, that as we talk about a smaller engine, in the U.S. we have an EPA regulation today that is very stringent on diesel emissions, known as Tier 4 final emission standards. It has made a diesel engine very expensive, very complex to not only make, but to maintain, and it is very difficult for guys that come out of the diesel economy. So for once, we have an advantage in almost every attribute of that engine. We start off with a lower cost for the initial engine itself. We certainly have lower emissions, and it doesn't matter what emission you want to talk about, our emissions are reduced from existing gasoline and diesel technology. Our fuel, significantly cheaper, many cases 50% cheaper than the existing fuel for gasoline or diesel. From a maintenance standpoint, much easier. Take away the filters, the traps, all of the devices that are on a complex diesel engine. It makes for the mechanic's life to be much easier. And frankly, in some industries, particularly commercial mowing, where theft, spillage, pilferage, the whole host of issues that are associated with refueling the vehicle, secure fuel storage in and of itself may be enough of a reason to make the switch. Put all of these 5 attributes together, and it is a compelling case to switch to propane as a fuel. You'll see us begin to now take a whole host of engines that perhaps you've not thought about. And if you come to our booth here or visit with the Kohler folks here, you'll hear them talk about the first product that you see here, which is a mobile generator. A unique device for them in that on-board fuel storage for 1 day's worth of operation, so it can leave the dealer's yard full of fuel, and then the retailer can hook up his portable and stationary tanks for as long as that unit needs to run. But that begins for us a suite of products that are aimed at the commercial contractor, or if you will, anyone who's on a commercial construction site. We envision that most of our engines can be in their applications over the next 4 to 5 years. Also pictured here, you see a light tower. This particular one is solar powered with a propane engine backup. No reason that it couldn't have been pictured as just a straight propane engine. But again, large applications, long run times, superior features of the engine, and you'll see us begin to move that into the marketplace. The other product we never talk about, it exists today. This is a man lift made by JLG, #1 market share in the US, but again, just an example of an industry that is almost voluntarily moving to propane-fueled engines because their users, in this case contractors, prefer the features and benefits of a propane engine. The poster child of success for us, frankly, though, is commercial mowing. Here you see the symbol of government here, the symbol of freedom in the United States, the National Mall in Washington, D.C., mowing their grounds with propane-fueled engines. They did that for many reasons, not the least of which they want to use a domestic fuel in the heart of America, but they also know the benefits from the emissions that are coming out. Reduced smog, reduced greenhouse gases, a whole host of reduced emissions, not the least of which we're also saving the government money. This is an example of the growth that we're seeing in this industry, and we believe at the end of this year, we'll see 20,000 mowers mowing grass in the United States, burning approximately 15 million gallons a year. That's a market that 5 years ago didn't exist. All types. This type you see is a walk behind. I'll show you some. It doesn't really matter. For us, it's about the commercial mower using a mowing device that he chooses and generally getting 800 gallons of usage per mower per year. We started out, we had one brand. As I sit here to you today, we're back fresh from the large mowing show for the year. We there could announce our 20th brand, and you'll see some very powerful brands in there. Toro, John Deere, you'll see Gravely. These are names that the commercial landscaper, the guy that relies on his equipment to make his money every day, he's choosing these brands, and we are proud to see that all 20 of these brands are now using propane as a part of their lineup. We really are focused on this type of engine, what we would in the United States call a zero-turn radius. But these are high speed. These are what the commercial mower is using every day, all day, to mow the grounds around the United States. You'll see a variety of applications, engines that can range from 15 horsepower to almost 30 horsepower, a single 33-pound cylinder, a dual application, behind the seat. Some have 43-pound applications, but always same in that they're choosing propane for the features and benefits of the fuel over gasoline and diesel. Always proud to talk about the engine manufacturers because in our marketplace there are basically these 4, and each one of these have either begun to have a nice complement of propane-fueled engines or have a very robust lineup. But every maker of engines in this marketplace now has seen the benefit of propane. Kohler is the brand we like to feature because Kohler has really taken the lead in electronic fuel-injected engines. And what we are seeing now is it takes superior technology of electronic fuel injection that really can move a user from diesel or gasoline to propane. And we now are into our second engine with Kohler and invite you to stop by our booth and learn a little bit more about that. Well, why would anybody choose this electronic fuel injected engine? It's taken me 3 years to really realize, but if we can burn less fuel, not only is it a better economic proposition to the user, but the emissions are significantly reduced. In this case, if we talk about greenhouse gases, up to around 50% reduction from some gasoline models. And if we talk about the components that produce smog, generally the ozones, we're talking about around 20% reduction in ozone-forming components. That means a lot to a landscaper that's needing to mow in an area that has perhaps, as we do in the United States, days where we are limited on operation because of smog. And so a unit like this can operate on days when other people using conventional gasoline technology cannot operate. It's a significant benefit and feature. Now let me just say this, and I'm going to talk a little bit as we move through this, because we have to move the market, right? And I'll talk some later on about what is our market, but I want to mention up front that we are invested in this technology. For the last several years, we will give an end user up to $1,000 for his purchase of a propane-fueled mower. In exchange for our money to him, he gives us quite a bit of data about how he used the mower, his satisfaction, how many hours, what was his fuel consumed, quite a bit of data that we've been able to use to continually improve the market. But this incentive has made a big difference in making people listen to the story about moving to propane autogas. We also have to talk to the propane retailer. The propane retailer, generally in our business, is satisfied with his business as well. Why would he choose this other business? Well, here's the perfect new application for us. First off, commercial mowing cuts grass. Grass grows when the sun is shining. When the sun is shining, propane retailers need more load. So we have been traveling around the country saying, look, in this case, a good mower will use 800 gallons a year. Would you rather have one mower or two houses? And the cost of acquisition of this type of business is very easy and low for the propane retailer that knows how to get this business. So we have worked hard to get the propane retailer to understand how important this segment can be to his business as well. As we sit here today now, we begin to migrate into the larger engines and different applications. So we go from commercial mowing, now we just see us move into golf courses. And we're excited about this because we see early on that the acceptance from commercial mowing is going to translate to a good commercial success in golf courses. I'm showing you one mower here by an R&R. It's a company in Tucson, Arizona. But I could have shown you a slide that had every mower that's used in a golf course today is being made by R&R and is also used with propane. And as we speak today, we're rolling out across the country into 8 different locations a program, and we'll use the results from that program to really create a market into golf. The last piece we learned as we traveled around talking with people about what do you really need in commercial mowing, what's the next step for us, we realized that almost every university we went to wanted to talk about how propane could change the university for sustainability, for reduced cost. And we talked a lot about commercial mowing and sports turf, but the one thing that kept coming back, whether we went to industry or university or municipalities, is we wish you had a propane-fueled utility cart. And so you'll see us now, I'm picturing a John Deere Gator, but for those of you who know these products, they're made today by about 5 different manufacturers, and you see us move this marketplace as well into a propane-fueled unit. When we talk with any of these folks, and I just want to mention to you some of the lessons we've learned out in the field, one of the things that everybody wants to talk about is how will I refuel it? And we can talk because that is a true feature and a true distinguishing device for propane. As you grow, you start with just a cylinder exchange cabinet. And as you grow, perhaps you'll choose to have on-site fill from your local retailer. Perhaps you'll choose to have your own facility on-site where you fill your own cylinders. But no matter whether you're small or large, whatever your requirements are, there's an easy fueling application for you. And we see that once that lesson is told, that adds to their success. Our last piece of success has really been in irrigation engines. We just traveled through meeting with farmers and talking with farmers that are using this technology, and not one person would talk about one thing that they didn't like. They loved every feature of a propane irrigation engine for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. Lower initial cost, fuel is less, the operation is flawless for them, the maintenance was easy. Everything about a propane-fueled engine in irrigation service was a wonderful use for the farmer, and that's what we want to hear. We studied this market quite a bit, and you'll see that we have been, I think, been smarter in the deployment of this. The first thing we've studied is where in the United States are they using propane irrigation? It doesn't do us very much good to talk about irrigation in New York if there's not a lot of crops being irrigated. You can see here California with its agricultural intensity there, and different parts of the country. But we're beginning to take these engines that range from about 2 liters today to 10 liters in propane monofuel, and up to almost 30 liters if we use a diesel engine with a propane assist. We are seeing widespread acceptance, small to large, across a wide variety of farms and crop types. But if they're irrigating their crops, they are beginning to seek out propane as their fuel of choice. This is an application I just wanted you to see because it gives you a good example. Why would you want a tank of diesel in that field? Why would you want to have to worry about ground contamination, contaminating your water, when the choice you have is to set a propane tank that runs flawlessly, uses a domestic fuel at a cost half of what you were paying for diesel? You wouldn't. You would choose propane, and that's where we talk about it. If we get the word out, we can make these sales. So I want to spend one moment, because we can talk about great technology, and at this show and at this meeting, we're going to talk about great technology. But what we've learned is great technology is not good enough. It has to be clearly superior to move past gasoline and diesel. It is the status quo, it's the barrier, and we have to demonstrate superior benefits before we're going to move one user to choose us. So the first thing we've learned with all these techniques is the engine has to be superior. Not good enough, not almost as good as, it has to be superior. One of the reasons we back Kohler with the EFI. It is a superior engine, and it will be superior in 10 years from now because of the way it works. So you have to have superior technology. And then we have to think about 4 customers when we take anything out to the market. The first is certainly the manufacturer and its engineers, and how will we design it and build it and make it, everything about that. How will we address the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer's idea of what that product should be like? Secondly, and an important component of our success that's often overlooked, is the OEM's distributors and the sales force. They're used to selling diesel, they're used to selling gasoline, they don't want to sell propane. We have to show them how this is better for them, how this is better for their customer. And we work with them very long and hard in this channel to teach them how to sell. We have to talk to the propane retailer. Your business needs to change, and you need to learn to sell. And this is a key part. For commercial mowing and irrigation engines, it's such an easy thing to talk to a propane retailer about, because we need summer load. We don't need more winter load, we need more summer load. These are 2 great summer loads. How do we get to a propane retailer and get them to see the vision as well? And lastly, certainly not the least important, but is to get the end user to see the features and benefits of making the choice for propane. So with those lessons learned, we see that we can move markets forward, and we won't be talking about lose it, we'll be talking about use it. Thank you.
Well done, Tucker. Our next speaker is someone that I have worked with literally from my very first year at PERC. In fact, Larry Osgood, the president of Consulting Solutions, was essential in helping us establish the PERC Research and Development Program. He helped us get it off the ground. He is widely respected as an alternative fuel expert within our own industry. He has also served on numerous state and federal blue ribbon panels on alternative fuels. He has a very diverse background. Today, his business works with other businesses on purchasing, reorganizing, and selling retail distribution businesses, and he provides other leadership that really is built on his expertise in our industry, which includes executive positions in budget rent-a-car, petrol-lane gas service, Phillips 66 propane company, and was worldwide business manager of their specialty products and chemicals. He was a founding member of the Global Technology Network within the WLPGA, and someone who has continuously distinguished himself as doing his homework, getting it right, and knowing those details that can make all the difference between technology success and failure. So Larry Osgood, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Roy. I'm really very pleased to be here to be able to speak with you. This is actually my 7th opportunity to speak with the World LPG Forum or Global Technology Committee audience, and I consider that a privilege that I thank WLPGA, also PERC, and our National Propane Gas Association in the United States for. I have the opportunity to think about propane technology, new equipment, and what we do to communicate that to our existing and even new users every day. And I jealously guard that. It's a wonderful opportunity. Having spoken before, we've talked about the kinds of things that we were going to do. New communication, new equipment. And today, we're seeing it come out. New communication programs that are rolling out. New equipment that's working on propane with new customers that we didn't have before. And I hope to see you again in coming years, and let's all be talking about the new things that we're doing to sell LPG in new applications and new markets. I'll start my presentation today on large power generation, a relatively untapped area for LPG that we have tremendous growth opportunity in. And I'm going to start it with one word. That word is rum. Yes? You heard me correctly, rum. How many of you have ever had an opportunity to have a drink or a dessert that might have had rum in it? Oh, come on, come on.
Yeah, all right.
All right, there we go. We're getting some people going here. And the reason I say that is because it's almost a secret that if you've had a drink with rum, and especially if that rum might have come from the Caribbean area, there's a very good chance that that rum was made with LPG power generation. We just keep it a secret. And as a matter of fact, there's a brand new distillery in the Caribbean. I won't say the name, but if you get ready to have rum from that particular company, guess what? It'll be made with LPG power generation as well. I'm a little weird, but there's nothing as pretty as a 6 megawatt power generating station running on LPG. It's a beautiful sight. So let's talk about that market opportunity and how we might be able to tap into that. I'll share briefly about our PERC background and our power generation work in this area, the different types and equipment that's used for power generation, manufacturers that make the equipment that we could use, what the market drivers are in those segments so we understand what's driving the market and why they might be interested in looking at LPG. We'll also talk about how those projects are developed, a little bit about fuel options for those kinds of plants, and then I'm going to conclude with the real-world example of an actual LPG-fueled power generation system and where you can get more information so you can look at what to do with power generation opportunities in your area. So right now, to get started, I want you to think about a power generation site in your area, your community, your market area. Not a great big gigawatt power generation plant like Los Angeles or Cape Town would have, but the rest of the systems, the middle size, the communities, the resorts, those kinds of systems. And if you think about those systems, they're probably using diesel. And you know what? We're going to talk about how we could use those systems with LPG. The Propane Council has a mission to promote the safe and efficient use of odorized propane gas, and they have many programs that work on safety and training, the development and commercialization for promising new technologies. And we're here to talk more about that today. You're familiar with the end-use markets for LPG. Many of those markets have good growth potential. And if we look, there's something interesting, but the last half of that list really all focuses around largely using LPG in an engine application. And we're getting better at doing that every day. Two different types of equipment and styles are used in electric power generation. The first type is the central power plant. Now, sometimes huge, but sometimes medium-sized also, perhaps powering an island, an area of a community. Those systems are usually in the 20 to 50% efficiency range, and they're often subject to frequent and extended outages. I bet if I ask, there'd be many hands go up today if we talked about whether electric power generation in some of your areas is reliable or not. The second type of power generation we have can be called distributed or on-site power generation. Now, sometimes it's interconnected with the grid also, but not always. Sometimes it's an independent, standalone facility. And some of those facilities use CHP, combined heat and power. Probably should be the other way around, combined power and heat. But anyway, you get the idea. We're making more efficient systems by not only using the electric power generation, but also gathering the heat that's normally wasted in so many of our power plants and putting that to good, efficient use as well. We can often have plants with CHP that have total combined efficiency of nearly 90%, more than double the efficiency from our energy than a regular energy source production. We also have fuel costs that may change for a site, but that extra savings we get from the CHP part, those extra savings never go away. They can also be very reliable when these systems are maintained properly, and we can also have good power production on site, often even during storms or times of local unrest. The types of equipment that's used in these power plants, sometimes large boilers for steam cycle turbines, but also gas turbines. More and more every day we're seeing gas turbines move into this market for several reasons. Sometimes they're combined cycle and have secondary energy recovery for higher efficiency. These can be in as small as 1 megawatt. Solar Caterpillar's turbine division makes a 1 megawatt system that is excellent for use in our applications. They make larger systems. Some of these gas turbines go up as large as 30 megawatts and some even larger. And they can be tied to the central grid or again used just for on-site power. We also have large reciprocating engines. My goodness, some are almost the size of this room that generate power as well. And there's smaller versions of that. Sometimes they're based on heavy-duty truck or stationary engines for smaller locations. But I did want to mention sometimes in power generation, people look at using automotive or truck type engines, and usually those don't have the durability that we really need for continuous power generation. And then lastly, we have small CHP systems and engines, and also even some microturbines that can do work using LPG for even smaller sites. And at the end, I'll mention some of the manufacturers that make this equipment. Actually, I'll go to that right now instead. The large gas turbines, we have companies like Hitachi, GE, Siemens, and Solar that I mentioned that make equipment today that runs on LPG. We have large engines from companies like Waukesha, Caterpillar, Jenbacher, and even giant ones from a company like Wärtsilä. We have medium-sized packaged CHP systems from companies like Yanmar. You can visit them in the trade show here. And also microturbines from Capstone. I saw a report just a couple years back from GE on using different fuel in their turbines. And about LPG, they said it's usually very clean and will perform well in gas turbines. 2 weeks after I reviewed that report, I got a call from a very rural, remote area, and they said, I'm having trouble. We're trying to find out about running GE turbines on LPG. We've contacted one of their largest distributors in the world, and they've said that that's not possible, that GE doesn't make turbines that run on LPG, and in fact, turbines can't run on LPG. I said, well, that's very interesting, because I just read the report from GE 2 weeks ago talking about how well their turbines actually can run on LPG. So there's one lesson there I want to leave you with, and that is LPG is new and different. And sometimes you need to contact other people in these organizations or their website and get a hold of people that do know that there's equipment that can run on LPG. Oftentimes, the local distributors don't know that yet. They're working every day, day in and day out with what they do know, and usually what they do know doesn't include LPG yet. So at the end, I'll talk to you about how you can get more information from these sites. Some of the drivers for electric power generation, certainly diesel costs are going up. LPG prices have been down and very attractive for these types of applications. Environmental regulations are driving up the cost of diesel fuel and also the cost of diesel engines. In order to clean them up and make them cleaner performing generating stations, it really is very costly to clean up the emissions from diesel. We have a cost advantage in many areas, good supply in many areas. Certainly, we all know that spillage with LPG is reduced. And certainly we can have high reliability on-site generating equipment using LPG. You know, sometimes we wonder about the reliability of that electric power, and I say that the best backup power system is one that's running already. Do you know that about 25% of backup systems around the world don't start when they're called on to generate power? And there's another 25% of systems that don't keep running. They can't handle the load once the load is put to them in a storm situation or something like that. My goodness, that's 50% of backup systems that don't perform and do what we need them to do. If we had an on-site LPG generating system that was running already, we don't need to start it. We know it'll handle the load. It's ready to go. And also in grid applications, some of the large generating stations are usually overbuilt and have high cost. And on-site generation with LPG, we can make sure and build the unit for the size that we need at that application, and that helps us with capital cost. Here's a quick overview of what a development timeline looks like for a new power project. You identify it, you develop and negotiate agreements, you build the project, you have to do startup. If that's a coal power plant, typically, in the case of this study, it was 5 to 7 years. If you're looking at a large gas power plant, you could easily be looking at 3 to 5 years. But with either distributed generation or retrofitting an existing power plant to use LPG, we can often be up and running in 6 to 18 months. And in fact, there's a real world example of that that's very close to here I'll share with you in just a moment. So those site issues, we have capital costs to deal with, operating costs to deal with. Sometimes we need longer term agreements for significant capital expenditures, maybe longer returns on investment, but still very solid returns on investment. We know the need for that power is not going to go away. Environmental, local issues. For site logistics, will LPG storage fit at the site? Government issues, we need permits, labor approvals, other environmental regulations. Sometimes we're delivering LPG in harbors that haven't had LPG delivery before. Bulk shipping and transportation to the site. Is there the space and the conditions available for that? The stability of that partnership. Do we have long-term contracts in place that make sense? And also contingencies. If things do go wrong or we have different things happen, do we have alternate backup plans in place so we can make the site a success? Why don't more sites use LPG for power generation? They simply don't know that LPG is a potential fuel for power generation. Everybody uses diesel, coal, natural gas, but not too many people have heard of using LPG. Also, if there are any difficulties, there's certainly not going to be any criticism if you use the same old fuels that have already been used. If you use a new one, there might be some criticism. So that's why we have to make sure we do a good job. We use different storage. It's not expensive. It's just different. What's that pressurized thing all about with propane? What about vaporization? Those are all things that we need to take into account. And I've actually heard it can't really be that simple, but it can be. Gas fuel options, we have natural gas in a pipe. If you've got it, use it. LNG is talked about a lot these days. It's really dedicated toward very large-scale systems. And this cost of LNG does not scale down very well. It's still expensive. Yet LPG can be available in areas. We can do the shipping that we need to do. And we have a fuel that can compete. If we looked at a world LPG price, just as a benchmark, a target, if it were $700 a metric ton, that's about $1.40 a gallon, or a little over $14 a million BTUs. That can compete with LNG pricing in many applications. Also, if it's local and we're getting the fuel to the site, we're often competing with diesel. If diesel's $3.50 a gallon delivered, that's $25 a million BTUs. We can usually have LPG available at a competitive price with that. Plus, we get lower greenhouse gas emissions, and we have the environmental benefits. Many of these are located in sensitive areas, and we don't have to worry about spilling LPG in that beautiful harbor. We talked about natural gas enough. You're going to have this in your presentation pack. I'd encourage you to take a look at it. But again, we can compete very well with liquefied natural gas. It's been looked at, in this case, I won't cite the country, but it's very close here as well. They've looked at diesel for decades. They've got power costs that exceed 40 cents per kilowatt. They've been looking at LNG for over a decade, and they've done nothing, just studied and studying. LPG could be a solution that they could in fact be using already. The U.S. Virgin Islands are in the process of converting a power plant over to LPG. 2 different plants on their islands there. They have 7 turbines that are going to be converted over, and they're reducing their fuel costs substantially. Here's a picture of a tank that's being installed. This picture is about 2 weeks old. Lastly, I want to share a particular site with you at the Kauai Marriott. If any of you need to have a meeting, if you need to go see a power generation site, you can go see this one. It's very beautiful. It really gives good power for this site. It's been in place and running for 7 years. Inside that cabinet is the engine, 2 420 kilowatt Caterpillars, and the waste heat is used not only for the laundry in the kitchen, but also for the swimming pool. I just talked with Kirk at this site about a half an hour ago. The system's up and running at full power right now, in its 8th year of operation actually now, and here's their fuel storage for that site. So with that, we've talked about a lot of different pieces of power generation with LPG. You can get more information at the websites from the suppliers. You can also go to the PERC and the New World LPG Apps website, or you can contact me, and I'd love to share with any of you what we might be able to do in these new technology areas. Thank you very much for having me today, and I look forward to any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Our next speaker is Captain Bernardo Herzer. Captain Bernardo is a licensed ship captain and owner of a commercial research vessel. He is an inventor, an entrepreneur, and an expert salesman. He holds 47 U.S. and international patents, and is a man who is inspired by his own passion. It was while working a research project for Her Majesty's Royal Fisheries. Hadn't heard of that. Didn't know she had one. But while working that, he was noticing the impact that gasoline engines were having on the marine environment, and put his heart and soul and energy toward finding a solution. As a result, he has developed and commercialized award-winning, eco-friendly, propane-powered engines for marine outboard engines and other handheld lawn and garden equipment. When I say award-winnings, he's won awards for the Intel Tech Award, the Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Air Award. He's been multiple times recognized by Popular Science as having one of the best new products on the market. He has won most recently the Best Outboard Motor Award, and is the boating industry's Top Products of the Year Award. All on propane. So please join me in welcoming Captain Bernardo Herzer.
Thank you very much for having me, and I want to thank the World LPGA for this opportunity, second time at their annual conference, and of course PERC and Roy Willis and the tremendous work they're all doing at the Propane Education and Research Council. And I'm really honored to be sitting at the table with these very distinguished gentlemen, and I'll try to make this presentation as best that I can. Thank you for having me. Propane and marine fuel, and I think you've been hearing that there is opportunities in that, and I share that belief very strongly. The first slide here is a little bit of information in reference to propane. I believe most of you are familiar with the basics on it, but it is important to bring this up because of the applications in the marine space really make a difference for these types of things. The fact that it's non-toxic and it can't get in the water is a big plus. When you go to a marina, usually to refill your boat, it's not whether or not you're going to spill some gasoline. It's a fact that we all think, I hope it's not so much that people are taking notice. That's the reality. Propane as a marine fuel. The opportunities for displacing propane are truly the great opportunity for propane. And I've been involved in the marine sector, and I've been living on a boat, family yacht, since I was 14 years old. And I can tell you, I converted my first propane engine, I think I was 15 or 16, and I've been doing it ever since. On a family yacht, I've been doing it on a commercial research ship that I've owned various, and I have seen the effects of our incredibly powerful technology now in the marine environment. And it is our responsibility to do something about it. If not, it's going to be forced down our throats. And this is what's happening in the marine environment. As you can see, the emission regulations today are being mandated for cleaning our emissions, you know, the higher cost of meeting those emissions. And this is what it looks like. And he just mentioned, you know, the LNG, liquefied natural gas, is an option for the very, very large ships around the world. Well, today there's a race to build LNG tankers. It's happening all over the world. Where the capacity is to build them, that's where they're building them. And this is what it looks like right now, but emission standards are coming to your neighborhood. This is not like maybe, this is really what's happening. And it's happening in lakes and rivers, it's happening on coastals, it's happening around the world. The global boating market, I mean, should you really be interested? It's only a $25 billion industry. The drivers in this growth are replacements, you know, the technology increase, regulation, the regular innovation of products like propane is a very important part for companies to sustain their successful position in this market. And what I mean by that, I don't know if it's clear, is manufacturers that aren't going to get into making boats that are powered by propane are going to lose a big chunk of the market segment. And what I mean by that is, I'll show you, because what happens is, today, this is what inboard boat manufacturing looks like. It's moving more and more over to outboard motors. Inboards and, you know, stern drive outfits are kind of moving off. This is US numbers, and you can see here that there's some significant numbers in all the engine sizes. These are some serious gallons. But we needed to start somewhere where the consumer could see that the product actually worked. So we decided to go to market and develop a specific type of motor that only runs on propane. Propane's strengths and weaknesses, of course, we all have them, right? The fuel has incredible advantage. It's reliable in maintenance, environmentally friendly, cost-effective. The barriers in this market to propane are these. And these are some of the more important barriers. the refilling infrastructure, the concerns about the reliability of the products that people are manufacturing, because there's a lot of conversions from gasoline. And in the marine environment, it doesn't fit so well. Concerns over safety. And those concerns are well guided and well meant, you know, but propane, like gasoline, has, you know, heavier than air vapors. So those concerns need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed, you know, in a very concise manner, together with the industry and WLPGA and PERC. We're making those statements, and we're teaching the consumers, you know, at the retail levels even, why this is a product they should be using, and why propane is, you know, every bit as safe or safer than gasoline. Regulations on large fuel storage capacities in diesel and gasoline. That's when you start to get into the bigger types of vessels. So if you have a 30 or 40-foot vessel, you're going to need a little bit more propane to fuel that boat, but you gain a lot because propane is obviously a lot lighter than gasoline, or diesel for that matter, right? Propane key points. Primary selling points for commercial is fuel cost. Obviously, anybody that can give a commercial operator a lower operating cost, you've got them. It's all over. There's nothing else that, you know, will drive that. These savings are usually on a global level. They're higher, you know, their higher costs to meet emission standards will also drive this industry. Because with gasoline and with diesel, those fuel costs, and to meet those emission standards, even the marine environment will continue to rise. We have a tremendous advantage there, and we need to take advantage of it. And this is some examples of what the savings can be. Ethanol, gasoline causes a variety of problems, and it's in the papers, and, you know, any mechanic you go to, that's all they talk about. Fuel cost saving in recreational boat will be lower because of the shorter run times, but the fact is, you know, on a weekend, if you have a small boat, it costs you $1,000 to run that boat for 3 or 4 days out to the islands. If you can cut that cost in half, everybody wants it. Propane points, the marine fuels have significant environmental advantages. A lot of you are very familiar with those. The benefits of propane, critical advantages of specific markets. Many ports are making significant efforts to clean up pollution and emissions in their areas, and ports are some of the biggest drivers for propane motors and LNG equipment, things like tugs and commercial boats. Marine operations, environment sensitive, of course, sensitive areas, we use propane. We sell a lot of propane outboard motors to universities, drinking reservoirs, and a lot of areas where you would be surprised how many outboards are being used, even in the small sizes that we're up to today. Market sentiment will place additional value on environmental impact. This is some of the problems with the infrastructure in recreational markets. We do have infrastructure problems, and we need to address those. However, you know, for smaller motors, cylinders work just fine. There's also the fact that a lot of people say, well, God, you know, how are you going to fuel a boat if it's got a built-in tank and the thing's sitting in your driveway? I said, I call up the propane company. The guy comes with a bobtail truck and a 100-foot hose, and he fills it up. He doesn't care if he's going to the back of my house to fill up my tank or my front driveway. Now, that doesn't actually happen around the world. In some areas, you have some different regulations, and there isn't bobtail trucks with 100-foot hoses, right? But the lack of widespread on-the-water refueling of it will limit the market. However, I believe the propane industry is very eager to develop this infrastructure, to work with areas that would be interested in putting in infrastructure to fuel boats, whether they be rental fleets or fishing fleets or tug fleets, right? Dockside bobtail delivery will provide a workable option in certain markets, but making convenient to both owners and retailers. Refueling in the U.S. is available, but internationally challenges vary country by country. And I'm finding that as I sell motors around the world, the propane providers in these areas are very eager. But even the eagerness of that, there needs to be, and I'm so happy for the infrastructure that's been put in place right now to be able to get the information and to develop an understanding of what's going to be necessary for all of the stakeholders to be able to drive this particular industry forward. Safety concerns, recreational and commercial, safety issues, vapors sinking to the hull. You have certain safety concerns, but these the main problem is that the safety regulations that prohibit the use of propane as a marine fuel, these inconsistent regulations around the world will be a major challenge. So the regulations are not consistent. Even in all of Europe, you have different regulations within the EU. Environmental benefits, we're all familiar with these. Cost benefits, convenience of using these fuel, the performance, obviously we have great advantages there, and propane versus electric. This comes up all the time. Propane has actually the longest runway, I believe, or one of the longest runways in the marine industry, and that's because electric will start to take market shares on certain applications. But the difference is the energy density. The energy density needed to push a boat through the water is tremendous. It's like a truck going up a very steep hill. So I believe we have some of the best opportunities in the marine industry for all kinds of fleets. Engine fuel efficiencies. These are some of the studies that have been done in Italy and Spain on propane. We recently were granted permission to be able to sell and use propane motors on Lake Constant. This is 3 countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. This particular lake had a complete freeze on any more internal combustion spark ignition engines that run on diesel or gasoline, but they've now allowed propane to be sold head-to-head with electric. This is a great triumph for I believe, for the propane industry, and it kind of shows that we're able to grab markets where electric has only been allowed for many years. Learning from the auto gas industry, of course, we have great lessons to learn there. Key development drivers, mandates, legislation. The IMO is the International Maritime Organization, EPA and CE and local bodies. These will be the drivers on the environmental issues, the market demand for equipment conversions, economics, equipment cost premium reductions, operating total cost of ownership and lower cost of fuel, water control pollution, controlling pollution in the water. Gas particulate matter, you have certain problems there. Still today, 50% of the water bodies in the U.S. are under a water contamination advisory. That means you can't drink the water and you can't swim in that river. That's amazing. These are some of the applications that we've worked with and helped run propane boats. And all of these are commercial boats. Some of them do cleanup work, some of them do patrol work, some of them are inboards and some of them are outboards. So propane is very versatile. It can be used in all applications. These are some of the larger applications that can be used. Manufacturers around the world today are actually building propane lockers in boats. So, some of these pictures here are from the largest boat manufacturer in the world. These are propane lockers that are being installed in boats to use propane in. So propane on boats is not a new thing, and it is being used daily. We just need to increase the gallons to power the equipment. Of course, I broke a world record. This is the 15 horsepower. We're not only innovating propane, this is the world's first internal battery electric start motor. This is our line of products today. We're doing a 25 horsepower this year and a 50 next year. The world's first 25 horsepower propane powered dedicated motor with an electric start internal battery. This is our product line. This is the consumption of propane by hour, by engine size. These are some of the other products that we manufacture and have produced. So what are we doing about it? World LPGA has decided that GLOTEC, the technical committee in the Marines application, and we formed a committee, and these are the key drivers. As you can see, we're trying to do it in a coordinated manner. We want to bring it to the LP manufacturers. We want to influence local regulators and legislators, and we want to serve as an excess focus group. I've been asked to be the chairman, and I am now the chairman of this. Nikos is the person to get in touch with. If you're interested in this committee, thank you. And that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain. Our final speaker today gave me a very short biographical data, so I can't really say much about him other than he works for one of our industry's premier companies. Giorgio Basalgia is the Strategic Business Development Director for the Cavagna Group and is the director of the Green Gear Project. Giorgio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm really very honored to be with you today in this important session. I really liked when Nikos a few months ago proposed me to talk about what is going on Green Gear project because today is an important day and the occasion is important at worldwide level to talk about the business as a whole more than the single components. So the title of my presentation is Bringing Propane Application to Life, so it's very much in line with what Nikos and the World LPG Association have been doing or trying to do and succeeded today with this project. How does it work? Okay. Cavagna Group have been working on this project and application for the last 4 years. It has been a really long exercise. Cavagna Group is, the headquarters are based in Italy, but it's a truly multinational group, which is active in more than 135 countries, producing in 9 countries and 18 plants. So the approach we tried with this Green Gear project is truly global since the beginning. As you see, the Green Gear, the Cavagna mission is very much in line with the next slide, which is the Green Gear mission. The idea behind the Green Gear development since the beginning has been to try to find alternatives, to try to find new ways of approaching an apparently, at that time, declining market, and it's definitely a declining market. Trying to find new ways, alternatives, ways of doing things to challenge this difficult period. About a year ago in London, there was a turn in what we have been doing. There was a turn deciding that was at the right moment after 3 years of studies to turn this project into a business. And since then, I've been the director responsible for this. Now, instead of telling you what Green Gear is all about, I decided to go with a short video.
Reduce fuel consumption and protect the natural environment. In everyday life, there are a growing number of ways in which we can do both. Today's technology gives us the opportunity to make a contribution towards a greener planet in ways that couldn't even be imagined only 3 years ago. Don't believe us? Come and see. Have you ever thought that this tractor is running on LPG? Traditional engines, expensive and polluting. They've been replaced with engines using LPG oil. Let me take you through just a few of the advantages. The use of LPG significantly reduces operating costs. Compared to gasoline, you can save up to 40%, and without compromising standards of performance or practicality. In fact, LPG is less stressful on the engine. actually increasing the average lifespan of both the engine and its parts. But the benefits don't stop here. Equally as important is the fact that LPG is a cleaner fuel, polluting less, reducing exhaust emissions and noise. Switching to LPG means you can avoid that nasty smoke that's coming from conventionally fueled internal combustion engines. With LPG, you can breathe easy, enjoy the great outdoors, and avoid those hassles with the neighbors. Sounds pretty relaxing to me. But is it really that easy and convenient? Let's see. Compared to a full tank of gas, a full LPG cylinder will mow a greater surface area, meaning less stops to refuel as you go, less maintenance, and no more messy drips and spills while filling up. In short, it's amazingly practical. There are different types of cylinders and cartridges, all gauged to various equipment, all very easily and safely mounted. Handling LPG is extremely safe because it's available in certified and tested containers, such as 16-ounce cartridges, 20-pound cylinders, and special cylinders for forklifts and other industrial equipment. LPG is the logical future for all kinds of tools and equipment. It's a particularly suitable fuel for engines from 25 to 800 cubic centimeters in size. Let's start in the garden with a trimmer, for example. Here's an LPG power snowblower. And take a look at this generator engine running on LPG. The house and garden are just the beginning. As we move on to public spaces and streets, where the daily workload is that much more intense, the benefits of LPG are even greater. If the street sweepers that work to keep our cities clean were all powered with LPG, there would be huge savings for local governments and cleaner air for our cities. It's just an example, but it does show you how important it is to focus on LPG as an alternative fuel. How is it possible to fuel a traditional gasoline engine with LPG? It's simple. Through Green Gear and its product line, which uses EnerKit, an advanced high-quality Italian technology which converts conventional internal combustion engines so that we can use LPG. Green Gear is the brand that provides you with propane solutions that are easy to use and reliable across a wide range of products. So if you think that LPG is only useful to fire up your barbecue, well, it's time to think again. There are many ways that you can use LPG fuel products. My steak is cooked to perfection. Hey, thanks for listening. Cheers.
Okay. So I would like to spend a few seconds talking about what is behind the idea of the Green Gear activities, actually the project. Matching the offer has been the statement that guided us during all this development. We really believed that there is no alternative for anybody, any of us that would like to buy one of these equipments. Today, the only choice is gasoline. So what we wanted to do is, first of all, make sure that the price was out of the equation, so there is no discussion about whether it's costing more or less, the same, whatever. We say price is not going to be an issue, it's going to be at least the same of the gasoline one, but what we want to do is to offer a true choice to the final user. So whatever is left after the price issue is a benefit for the user. We have been going through all these details with the previous presentation. I don't think it's worth it to do it again, but I mean, offering the same range of application and equipment that is today available on the shelf, on the DIY, on any other shop, that today are running on gasoline, and making them available on propane is the goal of Green Gear, is the way we wanted to proceed. The entire project has been built since the beginning global. I mean, everything has been done to make sure that there was a standardization of product, that the technology was available, that the logistics were in place, that the organization to make it work was in place, somehow making even the organization a new attempt, so trying to make it more modern, distributed, dynamic, so not to copy anything that was available in the past, so to make sure that the offer, the matching the offer was a truly global attempt. Now, what are we talking about? I mean, we are talking about products that you can see both at the Cavagna Group booth and the PERC exhibit. But instead of telling you all the good things about the product, I would like to show you another film. Okay. Okay. A year ago, it was the same occasion, was the World LPG Association Forum in London. And we decided to have a date. The difference between the last 3 years and the new period was a date. The date is the difference between a dream and a project. And we wanted to have a project with an end. And the end, that means the date that we fixed, is today. So it might be the same case for me to have the bell to celebrate that today is the end of what we call the Green Gear project as the beginning of what we call the business. So today, there is a company, this new company based in the UK that is looking after all these products and their distribution and the management all over the world. It's called Green Gear Global. So a year after, we are here to present the result of what we decided to do that day. We are not approaching all the countries at the same time. There is a huge interest in all these products. We are actually splitting the countries into 3 major groups. The first one that you see now is the group that is going to the market very soon, actually from tomorrow. Pretty important countries, as you see. There is a second group of countries which is just following the first group, and then is a couple of steps behind the first group. So they are expected to go to the market in a few months. And then there is another bunch of countries that are on initial discussions And I can tell you that the requests from different countries, the interest about these products is growing every day. I would like to underline a couple of things about innovation and change. Innovation is important in terms of technology, but is also extremely important on this matter in terms of organization. And we spend a lot of time talking about the right organization to manage the business. But change is also very important, because change is regarding the mentality, the approach, the perception. Actually, at the end, is regarding the people, which is the most difficult thing to deal with. So the path between the Green Gear project to the Green Gear global company has been long and difficult, but if we look backward, it's only lasted 14 months. I cannot dare to try to do the same picture, because there were only 4 and they made it. But the number of people that work with us during these 14 months is so high that the only thing I could do today is to make this slide and thank them all together. Most of them are in the room, so they will recognize their name. So our deepest thanks go to all of them that contributed to the success of our endeavor. I'm not very good at this. Okay. So we started with a question: use it or lose it? We think, yes, we can. Well, it's not what you think about. I mean, nothing to do with politics. Good. It's, yes, we can use it. So the products are available out at the booth, in Cavagna booth, and at the PERC exhibit. So you can see them. There is a catalog of 50 new products available worldwide since tomorrow. One more thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Giorgio, and thanks to all of our panelists. Unfortunately, we've consumed all the time allotted to us, so we do not have time for questions here in this session. But our panelists will be around for the next couple of days. You will find them on the exhibit floor, and feel free to come to them with your questions. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Our session is concluded.